this up. The future of community engagement. We have a bit of background voice. Sorry guys, somebody has a background voice. The future of community engagement. Great that we can have this panel today, and that welcome our experts here. First, Silvia Andriotto brings in the investors and family office perspective on this topic. Thomas Euler, my colleague and co-founder at Untitled Inc. and also Liquidity Team, is the CEO of Liquidity Team, and brings in the perspective here from a venture at the intersection of blockchain and pro sports and the creator economy. Sofiane Deloué, the founder of New Life AI, a very exciting project as well, on the way to establish a DAO. Just completed the first fundraising round, and I know the project. I'm following that since I think April this year. And last but not least, Marjorie Hernandez, the Vogelsteller, founder of Luxo, very exciting Berlin-based project with a very strong track record in the metaverse, I would say, but she will certainly tell us a little bit more about that. So the future of community engagement. If I look at that topic, that's, so to speak, more and more important, whether you have already an existing community, like for instance, a football club or a star, a celebrity. They usually have a community and want to engage with them, or whether you are just about to start and build a community. And there have been a lot of projects out there, and we have some representatives here that have invested a deep thought into how to go about this task. And many of those solutions today are go beyond what we see in the Web 2 world, with the social media platforms, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, etc., into Web3 blockchain token-powered solutions. And so the key question for me would be, or first question for the panelists would be, why exactly do you believe, how do you approach this topic? Why do you believe that the future of community engagement should be tokenized? Yeah, I maybe start off. Who wants to go first? Is it Marjorie, or should I play it to?
I can go first. I don't mind going first. Yeah, I mean, why community should be tokenized? And I think, you know, the first question is, what is a community to start with, right? So normally communities form around a belief or something that join them, right? There's an ethos, there is something that they're gathering around effectively. And, you know, the ways we use to signalize that we belong to a community are, you know, different strategies. If I'm a sneakerhead, I display it by wearing my sneakers. Or if I am, you know, if I love a brand, I just wear that brand. If I, you know, love an artist, I just follow them. If I like an influencer, I follow them. So there's, in a digital environment, there's a very limited set of ways that you can demonstrate that you are part of a community, either by following a person and then you demonstrate your interests, or by displaying, basically by showing, flexing, you know, joining conversation, participating, and things like this. But people tend to invest a lot of times in their communities. If I am somebody who is very passionate about a specific, you know, sneaker designer or sneaker creator, I might invest a lot of time into knowing what they're doing, what's happening. And that's a time investment that should be somehow being able to signalize it beyond just the fact that I own a sneaker. So I think what we can achieve through tokenized communities is the ability to make or bring some level of tangibility to something that is totally untangible. And then we can quantify things that normally can only be quantified by I follow or I like. Sofiane invented something that I really like very much, that is the deep like, which I think it's a brilliant concept. And I think, you know, when we introduce the notion of blockchain and the notion that most of our time, of the things that we love, the communities that we belong to are existing in a fully digital environment, the question is how we make sure that we can signalize that, but we can also claim it and utilize it to receive rights or access or whatever it might be. So the point we can start to tokenize those interactions, the fact that I invested time into something, the fact that I achieved this bounty, that I did a good deed to get these sneakers, that I'm doing things, that these activities can be rewarded in some sort of token, then we have something that can be transacted, that can be utilized. So we have a way to signalize things and quantify for things that we weren't able to do before. So I think being able to create something tangible and quantifiable around human interactions that tend to be emotional and, you know, ethereal, and they go away, is something really powerful. And it's very important when we're in a virtual environment.
Yeah, I would thanks a lot for these deep thoughts and insights into that topic, and I would just pass it on, I think, maybe to Sofiane, because you were just mentioned with a deep like. What would you add to this perspective? Why should communities be tokenized, or how exactly maybe do you approach this task?
Yeah, thank you so much, Marjorie, for the reference. Yeah, I think to add on the very broad perspective of Marjorie, I would say something that we find very puzzling currently on the internet in general is this idea of creative value discovery. So there is a process, let's say, where people try to coordinate around creative value. And so there are many methods that can be used. Some are, let's say, more manual, like old school. You will join, let's say, an art gallery, and then you will have curators and humans trying to coordinate around what's the value of that specific artwork. And then you have like the more industrial scale that has been delegated to social platforms like, you know, Instagram, Twitter, and so on. And so people bombard each other with likes, and we try to like look at. But the thing is that the whole social media landscape is biased towards engagement, meaning that it cares more about how many eyeballs rather than the actual quality. And I think that putting tokens in the mix kind of provides the best of both worlds, where you get the expertise and the skin in the game that you have in the art world, for example, or in any other form of human, let's say, curation, and it brings the scalability of social networks. And so when you combine those two things together, you create a new mix that basically empowers creators in a way that has never been seen before, because currently, if you are, let's say, based in Africa, you could create very viral content on Instagram or TikTok and so on, but you just get the likes, you don't see the money. And so to see the money, you would have to travel to, like, you know, all those places where you have the actual marketplaces like Hollywood or the Fashion Week in Paris or whatever creative occupation. While with the token, actually the value can flow across the internet in a programmable way. It lowers the barrier to entry, to trust, to all this, let's say, class of the world that didn't have access to it until now.
Yeah, I think a great addition here. So tokens, one as incentive machines, I would say, and second, also the concept of the Internet of Value, basically that we can transfer value over the internet, not just information. And with these insights, I would pass it on to Thomas Euler. Can you unmute?
Yeah, of course, I can unmute myself gladly, and I can jump in. I mean, going back to your initial question, I don't necessarily think that it is a big issue, or that it is an end in itself to tokenize community. I rather think it is a great toolkit to empower communities and to achieve different ends that really matter. And if we untangle this, I think the two main concepts that we see today are, on the one hand, social tokens, which are a great toolkit, and of course NFTs, which have been all the buzz, all the hype in 2021 and continue to go big in 2022. And just if we look at these two toolkits, what they can achieve, I mean, there is so far no defaults. I think, of course, empowering creators, giving them more options to address their communities, because as Marjorie said, many communities form around topics about interests, but also people who people are interested in. And there, I think it is, on the one hand, a cool way, besides and aside from the big platforms, for creators to achieve something in terms of monetization and of their work, but also I believe a great benefit is in empowering communities and giving communities more decision-making authority, if you want to put it in technical terms, or just to engage communities. To also, I think Chris Dixon from Andreessen Horowitz once called it or wrote a great piece about the initial problem that you have when you want to start a network or a community. How can you incentivize people in the beginning to contribute when maybe the size of the network isn't big enough? And the same applies in a sense to communities. So you can really give people a stake, if not in the legal sense, then at least in the emotional sense, in the community, and reward them, incentivize them, as has been said before. So that is, I guess, how I look at the subject.
Yeah. Great points. And maybe Michael Healy, hi, the founder of Unit Ventures, also very esteemed guest here. What's your take on this from the Unit Ventures perspective? Why should communities be tokenized?
Thanks so much, Oliver. Thanks so much, Carl, for me, and great to be alongside all the panelists. So there's about 12,000 tokens at the moment which exist. I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be 12 million. And at the end of this decade, we're going to see 12 billion tokens. So, really excited for the future where, I could buy some tokens of each of the panelists here, and then when they're even more successful, I get, a small piece of their future success. And, being part of every single business's community, every single person's micro community. I think what this is going to do, it's going to share a lot of the wealth in the world, allow it to flow much more freely and efficiently. And we're going to view money the same way we view information or communication. It's just going to flow much more freely. It's going to be much more distributed, and everything will be a community. We won't live in such a fragmented society where, people are kind of left to, feeling loneliness or feeling a sense of not belonging, but everyone will feel part of something bigger than themselves. And tokens are just a really interesting way of using technology to bridge this gap between people together. Thank you.
Yeah, great point, Michael, because I know that Sofiane's concept really is embracing that as well, because our initial goal at the discussions we had was around how can you give the creative minds in the initial stages of their career an opportunity to engage with investors as well, so that these investors then can pick, let's say, the interesting talent and can bet on that and how this develops and can get a share from their development, which is, by the way, also a topic that's very important here in the sports world, of Thomas basically identifying early talent and how can that relate. So maybe Sofiane first.
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting, the definition of investor, because currently when you look at the word investor, it mostly refers to a purely financial transaction, where actually you have a lot of people who co-invest in an artist's success, for example, by just sharing their links, or by curating their work, or by creating playlists. You have all kinds of ways people can invest their time and energy towards an artist. We used to call them fan, as in fanatics, as in completely irrational and not expecting anything in return. And I think that we will see the rise of communities where everyone has skin in the game, everyone can contribute, which will flatten the relationship between what we call, currently you have like the investors, the founders or creators, and then the customers. And those concepts will kind of blend into a universal model where everyone will be somehow co-owner of each other. And I completely agree with what Michael was saying, that you will be able to have skin in the game within all kinds of clusters, whether they are at a personal level or at a community level. And the energy and the time that we currently spend with our attention, for example, today in this conversation and so on, will be converted into an actual financial stake that will also derive towards governance, because ownership is not just about the money, it's also about having a say or influencing, let's say, the way the things are going to evolve over time.
And this is, I suppose, you are here referring into these emerging concepts we see around decentralized autonomous organizations, where this basically then gives you a higher stake on the governance, basically, of a community as well. Yeah, fascinating, I think. So a lot of things going on, and really broad visions, and also well thought through visions, I would say, in that field. Maybe to get Silvia here engaged in the conversation from the investors and family office perspective, how do you see this conversation, and what are your thoughts on the topic?
Thank you, Oliver. So first of all, I'm very happy to contribute to this panel. I'm happy also to see some familiar faces like Michael. I met with him. Hi, Michael. I met with him just last week, and it was fascinating to learn what he's building with the unit. So I think the contribution that I can give to this panel is the investor perspective. What I saw on the investor perspective is that right now investors start to not look necessarily just and only at profit, but start to look at positive impact. So what they try to invest on is obviously something that is profitable to them, but it needs also to bring a certain sense of inclusion, a certain positive impact, and possibly, obviously, community engagement. This is the first point that I can raise. The second point is the fact that, as correctly Michael and also Sofiana highlighted, the tokenization kind of unleashes a lot of new opportunities for investors. And lately, we have seen the rise of a different type of investors from 10, 15 years ago. And with this, I mean that investors or angel investors or private investors are not necessarily just and only the family office, the institutional investor, but start to be millennials, start to be young individuals that simply want to start an investor in an early, young age. And thanks to tokenization, Unit is a great example of the way we can potentially invest in projects of a single individual pretty easily just by sharing the link, as Sofiana before mentioned. So there are more opportunities for investors to participate in smaller projects and to become investors at an earlier age. So I think that this is definitely an exciting time, and the Web 3.0 gives the opportunity to, let's say, investors that start to be in their 18, 20 years old or 25 years old, very young age, to contribute to the project of a singer or of a fashion designer or of an interior designer or of, you name it. There are so many industries, but tokenization is definitely a way to extend the investment opportunities to a larger community. This is the point.
Yeah. But from your perspective, isn't it more difficult, let's say, your role, isn't that becoming more difficult because this community, especially these young people, can directly engage with those projects, and your role as a representative of family offices is, so to speak, to bring interesting projects and deals, let's say, to the attention of your clientele.
Yeah. So my perspective, these are all opportunities. I never see change as a threat. I see change just as an opportunity. And what we can bring in front of family offices, or we can bring in front of our type of clients, are simply innovative projects, innovative ways of investing. Then obviously it depends the size of the investments, right? If we go to a large family office, probably it comes with a larger ticket than a young individual that is just started investing, obviously, right? But I don't think it's gonna, this change we are passing through is gonna challenge the investment world. I mean, it's just shaping it, and we will be part of the change and evolve and adapt to the change. So there won't be major disruptions. Investors, at least the ones we are exposed to, are normally very tech savvy, and they know what the change is, and they know how to adapt to the change and become part of the change. So it won't be a threat. On contrary, it's going to be a world of new opportunities.
Yeah, thank you, Silvia, for this perspective. For this perspective, because that's one point, let's say, that's quite a bit common, I think, in all those projects that we see here from the founders and entrepreneurs, that they also use the tokens in a way, on the one side, to have a functionality in their networks, and also as a means to fund the development of their project, of their community. So in that respect, this is a really exciting development we've seen in the last, I would say, 5-6 years here, gaining traction. Maybe Marjorie, you heard now what your colleagues all presented. Is there anything to add here with let's say, a look at the time, because we are quite limited, that you would like to add from your perspective?
Well, this is quite an extensive topic. So what there is to add, there's so many things to add. I think we're just scratching the surface, right? I think in terms, I think everybody did amazing, insightful points. And, when we start talking about DAOs and voting rights and all of that stuff, that's super exciting, and that definitely shows the potential. But I always like to think about even more like simple things, like very, very, very simple, like what is a like? What does it mean to follow somebody? Like right now, we are all kind of like inflationary with our likes, like we just tend to give likes on the internet and whatever. So I think, like, of course we can do all of these beautiful, complex crypto economic models and, decentralized organizations, and did all of amazing things and found projects. But, there's a lot of like potentially very simple applications in the moment where a lot of the Web 2 dynamics become Web 3 dynamics. And in terms of, how, honestly, like there's a lot of people, and even all of us as entrepreneurs and creators of culture, we do create a livelihood partially through the community and the people who support our work. So I think, being able to be in touch with those people, have a communication channel with those people independently of any platform, is one of the most powerful value propositions. So I think the fact that those communities are platform agnostic, and if you are Kim Kardashian, or you're me, or Sofian, or Michael, doing our things, the people that we're in touch with and the people who are important to us don't depend on a platform. And I think, the concept of being canceled, that is something very popular in the Web 2 world, is even more dangerous in a future that is fully digital. And I think, when we talk about communities and kind of like the vision of the metaverse, the proposition around, having a company controlling the identities and the profiles of those users in a 100% digital environment is extremely dangerous, because it's not that you are canceled and you can create another account and you still exist in the real world. But in a virtual environment, if somebody is in control of the identities, it really represents a risk to your livelihood. So I think in terms of being able to exist and coexist and transact with each other directly is super powerful. And I think thinking about very simple stuff, like I think very simple applications, I would be very excited about this type of things beyond the DAOs and the very complex crypto economic stuff we're exploring.
We have some other panels here in the DAO context where we dive deeper into that. But I know that Thomas might have to add here maybe some thoughts on the aspects here of also owning your own platform, which is a very important topic, and how tokenization can help in that regard as well.
Yeah, sure. I think Marjorie already made the key point. There are today a lot of different risks that are broadly known as platform risk, and many creators, many communities are prone to those. And I think the decentralized Web3 stack and many of the projects that are working on it are just aiming to mitigate the risk and to make it possible that these communities can last independent of the decisions of single entities, like usually for-profit companies. And I think one other aspect, going back to what Silvia and Sofian said, I think what is really interesting in specifically like where tokenization meets communities and creators is that in the digital realm, at least, in my opinion, the scarcest resource we have today is attention, and making the attention, the passion of people, in some sense quantifiable, but also the input people give into communities, right? Like if you share knowledge, if you share other resources with a community, all this and many of these just emerging systems, like stuff we are building with LT-Fan platform or others out there are building, just give you a new toolkit to quantify reputation in these communities, and also turn attention, passion into an asset class. And while that might seem or sound super abstract if you come from like the industrial world of physical goods, then I think today in the digital economy, that is really the key asset. And it now, because we talked about what is an investor and what does investing even mean, I mean, now you can, in a sense, using these token concepts you can make bets on who is going to which topic, which creator is going to gain a lot of attention. And that is, I think, the essence of investing, or at least like early stage venture capital style investing, just in a very different context.
Great. Yeah, I think Michael, from your side, some final thoughts here.
Most definitely. So I think, the amazing work that all of us here on the panel are doing are going to make a huge, profound and significant impact on the future of society and humanity. And I really hope that, with, the work that you do, Oliver, with community building, what you've done here is super impressive. We can create a world which not just supports lots of people, but provides more opportunity and really, gives an opportunity for people to thrive. So like huge congratulations to all the people on the panel, and excited for everyone here listening to use different products and services that UNIT offers, as well as the amazing work of the many of us here on the panel. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Actually, good final words. I don't have to summarize more, but still want to give maybe one final word here to Sofian, if you want to say something or have to add some final thoughts here to what we just have been discussing, tokenization for the future of community engagement.
Yeah, so I think that this is probably the last year this type of meeting won't have their own tokenized mechanism. So I think next time we'll decide, if we do it on Luxo or Ethereum, or on which platform we want to tokenize this conversation and allow people to maybe participate also through, using their tokens to comment and all kinds of stuff. And I think this is just going to get even more fun and more tokenized and more gamified. To me, it all starts to look like a giant video game, basically. And I think tokens, you always have like a little scoring happening in a video game to kind of guide you and see if you're earning points or losing points and so on. And yeah, I think tokens are mostly about earning. And so the question is like, which kind of points do you want to earn? And yeah, this is pretty exciting.
And not to forget how to monetize in the end. That's also important. Okay, so with that, guys, thank you very much for these exciting insights here from, let's say, the forefront in this revolution, I would say, that we are seeing a lot of stuff is built, and I'm very excited to see the outcome of, let's say, look back in 2-3 years, how we see today and what we will have then. Thanks a lot to you. Happy to follow up, and I think we have to stick a bit to the schedule because the next panel should be up. I give it back with that to Carl.